Mike Rodriguez was delivering packages 12 hours a day, barely making rent on his tiny apartment, when a chance encounter with Bob Anderson completely transformed his life forever. Picture this: exhausted Amazon driver, dead-end job, drowning. In bills, living paycheck to paycheck with zero savings and mounting credit card debt. Fast forward just 24 months later, Mike owns 7 rental properties, generating over $8,000 monthly in passive income while working, only part-time, delivering packages by choice, not necessity. What happened during those crucial 2 years that completely revolutionized everything? Bob Anderson shared one simple mathematical formula called the 1% rule that most people have never heard of. Yet it's the exact same wealth-building secret that Robert Kiyosaki used to escape the rat race and build his real estate empire. This isn't about flipping houses, wholesaling contracts, or any complicated strategies requiring massive capital or perfect credit scores. Mike started with absolutely nothing. No savings account, terrible credit score, zero real estate experience, and working a physically demanding job that left him exhausted every single night. Yet somehow, he discovered the most powerful wealth creation system ever developed and applied it systematically to build generational wealth from scratch. The transformation wasn't just financial either. Mike went from stressed, tired, and hopeless to confident, energetic, and excited about his future for the first time in years. Here's what makes this story absolutely incredible. Bob Anderson didn't charge Mike a single penny for this life-changing information. He simply shared the 1% rule over coffee, explained exactly how it works, and showed Mike the step-by-step process that has created more real estate millionaires than any other investment strategy in American history. You're about to discover the exact same formula that changed Mike's entire bloodline forever. And more importantly, you'll understand precisely how to apply it to your own situation, regardless of your current income, savings, or experience level. This mathematical principle is so simple that anyone can understand it immediately, yet so powerful that it can generate massive wealth when applied consistently over time. The most shocking part of Mike's story isn't how fast he built his portfolio, but how he started with less money than most people spend on coffee every month. While his co-workers were complaining about being broke and trapped in dead-end jobs, Mike was quietly building an empire that would eventually free him from financial stress forever. Captivated? Stay right here, because we're about to uncover the most powerful wealth-building secret ever discovered. Mike Rodriguez had been driving for Amazon for 3 years, delivering packages in Phoenix, Arizona, earning about $42,000 annually before taxes. After rent, car payments, insurance, food, and basic living expenses, he was lucky to have $50 left at the end of each month. His credit score hovered around 540, making it nearly impossible to qualify for any meaningful loans or credit cards with decent interest rates. Every morning, Mike woke up at 5:30, grabbed coffee and a gas station breakfast sandwich, then spent the next 12 hours in scorching Arizona heat, carrying packages to doorsteps across the city. His back ached constantly, his knees hurt from jumping in and out of the delivery truck hundreds of times daily, and he felt completely trapped in a cycle of physical exhaustion and financial stress that seemed impossible to break. The worst part wasn't the physical demands of the job or even the low pay. Mike's biggest fear was looking ahead 30 years and realizing he'd still be doing the exact same thing, with a broken-down body and no retirement savings, completely dependent on Social Security checks that might not even exist by the time he reached retirement age. Mike had tried everything he could think of to improve his situation. He'd applied for better jobs, but lacked the college degree or specialized skills most employers required. He'd considered going back to school, but couldn't afford tuition or time away from work. He'd even looked into starting a side business, but had no idea where to begin and no capital to invest. The financial stress was affecting every area of Mike's life. He couldn't afford to date seriously because taking someone to dinner cost money he didn't have. He lived in a tiny studio apartment with a broken air conditioner because he couldn't afford the deposit for a better place. His car was constantly breaking down, but he couldn't afford reliable transportation that would eliminate his worry about getting stranded during deliveries. Mike's family situation made everything worse. His parents were also struggling financially and couldn't help him, while his younger brother constantly asked to borrow money that Mike didn't have to spare. He felt like he was failing not just himself, but everyone who counted on him. One Tuesday afternoon in March, Mike was delivering a package to an upscale neighborhood in Scottsdale when he met Bob Anderson. Bob was outside watering his landscaping when Mike approached with a delivery. Instead of the usual quick handoff, Bob struck up a conversation about the beautiful weather and asked Mike how long he'd been working for Amazon. Something about Bob's genuine interest and friendly demeanor made Mike open up about his situation. He mentioned feeling stuck in a dead-end job with no clear path to financial improvement. Bob listened carefully, then said something that stopped Mike in his tracks. "You know, Mike, most people work for money their entire lives, but I've learned to make money work for me instead. Would you be interested in learning how?" Mike's initial reaction was pure skepticism. He'd heard countless get-rich-quick schemes, multi-level marketing pitches, and investment scams promising easy money. His first thought was that Bob was about to try selling him some expensive course or coaching program that he couldn't afford anyway. But Bob quickly clarified that he wasn't selling anything. He explained that he was a former engineer who had discovered Robert Kiyosaki's wealth-building principles 15 years earlier and had used them to build a portfolio of rental properties that now generated enough passive income to support his family's lifestyle completely. Bob offered to meet Mike for coffee the following Saturday to share exactly what he'd learned, with no strings attached. He said he remembered feeling trapped in his engineering job and wanted to help someone else break free from the same cycle of trading time for money that keeps most Americans financially stressed their entire lives. Mike almost didn't show up to that coffee meeting. Part of him worried it was some elaborate scam, while another part feared getting his hopes up about something that probably wouldn't work for someone in his situation. But something about Bob's sincerity and the fact that he wasn't asking for money convinced Mike to give it a chance. That Saturday morning meeting at a local Starbucks changed everything for Mike forever. Absolutely stunned? Smash that subscribe button immediately, because the wealth-building strategy Bob reveals next will completely revolutionize your thinking. Bob started the conversation by asking Mike a simple question. What do you think is the biggest difference between rich people and everyone else? Mike's answer was typical. Rich people have more money, better jobs, or wealthy families. Bob smiled and explained that the real difference is how rich people think about money itself. Most people, including my former self, work for money, Bob explained. We get up, go to work, earn a paycheck, pay our bills, and repeat the cycle until we're too old to work anymore. But wealthy people understand that money should work for them instead. They buy assets that generate income while they sleep, rather than trading their time and energy for wages. This concept was completely foreign to Mike. He'd never thought about money as something that could work independently to create more money. Bob could see the confusion on Mike's face and decided to use a simple analogy to make the concept crystal clear. Think of money like employees, Bob said. Most people are solo business owners doing all the work themselves. But wealthy people are like business owners who hire employees to do the work while they focus on bigger picture strategy. Every dollar you invest in the right asset becomes an employee working 24 hours a day to make you more money. Bobby then introduced Mike to Robert Kiyosaki's most powerful concept, the difference between assets and liabilities. An asset puts money in your pocket every month, while a liability takes money out of your pocket every month. Most people think their house is an asset, but if it requires monthly mortgage payments, insurance, taxes, and maintenance without generating income, it's actually a liability. The secret to building wealth, Bob continued, is buying as many income-producing assets as possible while minimizing liabilities. Real estate is the perfect asset because it generates monthly rental income, appreciates in value over time, provides tax advantages, and can be purchased using other people's money through financing. Mike was starting to understand the concept, but worried that real estate investing required massive amounts of cash or perfect credit, neither of which he possessed. Bob assured him that those were common misconceptions that keep most people from ever getting started. Here's where Robert Kiyosaki's 1% rule comes in, Bob explained. This is the mathematical formula that determines whether a rental property will generate positive cash flow from day one. It's incredibly simple. The monthly rent should equal at least 1% of the total purchase price. Bob pulled out his phone and showed Mike some examples. If you buy a house for $100,000, it should rent for at least $1,000 per month. If you buy a property for $150,000, it should rent for at least $1,500 monthly. This ensures that after paying the mortgage, taxes, insurance, and maintenance costs, you'll still have positive cash flow left over. The beauty of the 1% rule, Bob explained, is that it eliminates guesswork and emotion from real estate investing. You simply analyze properties using this mathematical formula, and if the numbers work, you know the investment will be profitable. But Bob didn't stop there. He explained how the 1% rule protects investors from the most common mistake beginners make, buying properties that look good on paper but actually lose money every month. Mike, I've seen hundreds of people get excited about real estate investing, buy their first property without running the numbers properly, and end up losing hundreds of dollars monthly because they didn't understand this simple rule. Bob showed Mike how to calculate all the expenses involved in owning rental property. Beyond the obvious mortgage payment, investors must account for property taxes, insurance, maintenance and repairs, vacancy allowance, property management, and capital expenditures for major items like roofs and air conditioning systems. Most beginners only think about the mortgage payment, Bob continued. They see a property that rents for $1,500 with a mortgage payment of $1,200 and think they'll make $300 profit. But when you add all the other expenses, they're actually losing money every month. The 1% rule accounts for all these expenses automatically. When a property meets the 1% threshold, there's enough rental income to cover all expenses and still generate positive cash flow. Properties that don't meet this standard will almost always be financial disasters for investors. Mike was amazed by how simple the concept seemed, but he still had concerns about getting started. Bob, this sounds great in theory, but I don't have money for down payments, and my credit score is terrible. How could someone like me ever buy rental properties? Bob's response surprised Mike completely. Mike, I bought my first 3 rental properties with less than $10,000 total out of pocket, and my credit score was only slightly better than yours when I started. The key is understanding creative financing strategies and finding the right deals. Bob explained that many beginning real estate investors focus on traditional bank financing, which requires 20% down payments and excellent credit scores. However, there are numerous alternative financing methods, including seller financing, lease options, hard money loans, and partnerships with other investors who provide the capital while you provide the time and effort to find and manage deals. The most important skill in real estate investing isn't having money or perfect credit, Bob continued. It's learning to analyze deals quickly and accurately using the 1% rule, then finding creative ways to finance properties that meet the criteria. Once you understand the formula, you can evaluate dozens of potential investments every week until you find deals that work. Bob also emphasized that real estate investing is a long-term wealth-building strategy, not a get-rich-quick scheme. My first rental property only generated about $200 monthly in positive cash flow, he admitted. But I reinvested that money plus savings from my job to buy a second property, then a third, and so on. Each property added to my monthly passive income, and after 15 years I was earning enough from real estate to quit my engineering job completely. The compound effect is what makes real estate investing so powerful over time. As properties appreciate in value and rents increase with inflation, your wealth grows exponentially. Meanwhile, tenants are paying down your mortgages every month, building equity that you can eventually use to purchase additional properties. Bob concluded this part of the conversation by addressing Mike's biggest concern. Mike, I know this seems overwhelming, but every successful real estate investor started exactly where you are right now. The difference between people who build wealth through real estate And those who stay trapped in jobs forever is simply taking the first step and remaining consistent over time. He pulled out a napkin and drew a simple diagram showing how someone could go from 0 properties to financial freedom in just a few years by following the 1% rule consistently. Mike, if you can learn to identify good deals and find creative financing, there's no reason you can't build the same kind of portfolio I have. Mind completely shattered? Demolish that like button and stay locked in because the ultimate transformation is about to unfold. Mike left that coffee meeting with Bob feeling simultaneously excited and terrified. For the first time in years, he had a clear path toward financial freedom, but he also realized it would require stepping completely outside his comfort zone and learning skills he'd never needed as an Amazon driver. Bob had given Mike homework. Spend the next month analyzing rental properties in Phoenix using the 1% rule. Mike was supposed to look at online listings, calculate potential, cash flow, and identify properties that met the mathematical criteria, even though he wasn't ready to buy anything yet. Initially, Mike felt completely overwhelmed. He'd never analyzed real estate investments before and wasn't even sure what websites to use or how to estimate repair costs, property taxes, and insurance expenses. But Bob had recommended several online resources and calculation tools that made the process much more manageable than Mike had expected. The first week was frustrating. Mike spent hours looking at properties online, but couldn't figure out how to estimate all the expenses accurately. He called Bob several times with questions about property taxes, insurance costs, and maintenance reserves. Bob patiently walked him through each calculation and reminded him that every successful investor went through the same learning curve. After 2 weeks of analyzing dozens of properties every evening after work, Mike started recognizing patterns. Most properties in expensive neighborhoods failed the 1% rule miserably, while older properties in working-class areas often exceeded the 1% threshold significantly. He also learned to spot red flags like properties that had been on the market for months or listings with suspiciously low prices that usually indicated major repair issues. Mike's confidence grew as he became more proficient at running the numbers. He started creating spreadsheets to track properties he'd analyzed and began developing his own criteria for what made a good rental property beyond just meeting the 1% rule. The breakthrough moment came when Mike found a small 3-bedroom house in a decent neighborhood listed for $95,000. Comparable properties in the area were renting for $1,200 to $1,300 monthly, which meant this property exceeded the 1% rule by a comfortable margin. Mike called Bob immediately to discuss the deal. Bob was impressed with Mike's analysis and suggested they drive by the property together to evaluate its condition and the neighborhood. That Saturday, they spent 2 hours examining the house, inside and out, talking to neighbors and researching recent sales in the area. The property needed about $8,000 in cosmetic updates, new paint, flooring, and appliances, but the structure was solid and the location was ideal for rental tenants. Bob helped Mike calculate that even after renovation costs, the property would generate approximately $400 monthly in positive cash flow. The next challenge was financing. Mike had managed to save $3,500 over the previous year, but that wasn't enough for a traditional down payment. Bob introduced Mike to a local hard money lender who specialized in investment properties for beginning investors. The hard money loan required 15% down plus closing costs, which totaled about $18,000. Bob offered to partner with Mike on the deal, providing the additional capital needed in exchange for 50% ownership of the property. Mike would handle all property management duties and receive 50% of the monthly cash flow. Mike was nervous about taking on such a large financial commitment, but Bob reminded him that the property met all their criteria and the numbers were conservative. They spent another week double-checking all their calculations and getting contractor estimates for the renovation work before moving forward. 3 months later, Mike closed on his first rental property. The renovation took 6 weeks, and within 2 weeks of completing the work, Mike had found excellent tenants who signed a 1-year lease for $1,250 monthly. The first month Mike received his share of the rental income, $200 after all expenses. He couldn't believe he was actually earning money while sleeping. It wasn't life-changing money yet, but it represented something much more important. Proof that Bob's system actually worked. Mike's Amazon co-workers noticed the change in his attitude immediately. Instead of complaining about being broke and trapped, Mike was excited about his future and constantly talking about real estate investing. Some thought he was crazy for taking on debt and risk, while others became curious about what he was doing. Over the next 18 months, Mike repeated this process 4 more times. He reinvested every penny of rental income plus additional savings from his Amazon job to build his real estate portfolio systematically. Bob continued mentoring Mike and partnering on deals until Mike had learned enough to invest independently. Each property taught Mike something new about real estate investing. He learned how to estimate repair costs more accurately, negotiate better deals with contractors, screen tenants more effectively, and handle the various challenges that come with property ownership. By month 24, Mike owned 7 rental properties generating over $8,000 monthly in total cash flow. More importantly, he had built over $120,000 in equity as property values appreciated and mortgage balances decreased. The transformation wasn't just financial. Mike's confidence had grown tremendously as he mastered skills he never thought he possessed. He went from feeling trapped and hopeless to excited about his future and proud of what he'd accomplished through consistent effort and smart decision-making. Mike still works for Amazon, but now by choice rather than necessity. He enjoys the physical activity and social interaction with customers, but he knows he could quit tomorrow if he wanted to focus on real estate full-time. More importantly, he's building generational wealth that will benefit his family for decades to come. The most incredible part of Mike's transformation isn't just the money he's earning, but how it changed his entire outlook on life. He went from feeling powerless and trapped to understanding that he has complete control over his financial destiny. Mike now helps other Amazon drivers learn about real estate investing, paying forward the same knowledge that Bob shared with him. But the most life-changing, paradigm-shifting lesson that will determine your financial destiny is what I'm about to share. The most important lesson from Mike's transformation isn't the 1% rule itself, but rather the power of taking action despite fear and uncertainty. Mike could have made 1,000 excuses why real estate investing wouldn't work for someone in his situation, but instead he chose to learn, take calculated risks, and remain consistent over time. What separates successful real estate investors from everyone else isn't intelligence, education, or starting capital. It's the willingness to begin before feeling completely ready and the persistence to continue learning and improving through each deal. Mike made mistakes along the way, but each error taught him valuable lessons that made him a better investor. The 1% rule is just the beginning of your real estate education. Once you understand this fundamental principle, you can start analyzing properties in your area and identifying potential investments that meet the criteria. But remember, knowledge without action is worthless, and the biggest mistake most people make is learning about wealth-building strategies without ever implementing them. What you've discovered today is the exact same mathematical formula that Robert Kiyosaki used to build his real estate empire and achieve financial freedom. The 1% rule eliminates guesswork from property investing and ensures you only buy assets that generate positive cash flow from day one. In our next video, you'll discover the 3 biggest mistakes that destroy beginning real estate investors and how to avoid each one completely. These mistakes cost investors thousands of dollars and years of progress, but they're entirely preventable when you know what to watch for. Plus, I'll reveal Bob Anderson's secret method for finding motivated sellers who will finance properties themselves, eliminating the need for bank loans or perfect credit scores entirely. If this story inspired you to take control of your financial future through real estate investing, please subscribe to this channel right now and ring the notification bell so you never miss our latest wealth-building content. Your subscription helps us reach more hardworking Americans who deserve to know these life-changing strategies that schools never taught us. Show your appreciation for Mike's incredible transformation by smashing the like button and sharing this Video with friends or family members who are tired of trading time for money in dead-end jobs. Everyone deserves the opportunity to build passive income and achieve financial freedom through real estate investing. Leave a comment below telling us about your current situation and biggest obstacle to getting started with real estate investing. Our community of successful investors regularly shares advice and encouragement to help beginners take their first steps toward wealth building. Don't be shy about asking questions. We were all beginners once. Thank you for watching, learning, and supporting our mission to teach financial education that schools never provided. Your engagement helps us continue creating content that transforms lives and builds generational wealth for families across America. Remember, financial freedom through real estate is your birthright. Claim it now.